Shreds of upholstery floated through the air like snow as Officer Hensley's knife tore through Naomi Williams's car seats. Evidence, he called it, though they both knew he was hunting for something that wasn't there. Across the street, Jordan clutched his phone with white knuckles, filming his mother's humiliation while tears streaked his 10-year-old face. Brookhaven had always been a town of unwritten rules, of knowing your place, but this time they'd crossed a line. 300 miles away, a phone buzzed in the calloused hand of a man the military had tried to forget. Malik Thompson read his sister's desperate text, his face hardening into the expressionless mask that had once made him the deadliest sniper in his unit. They had destroyed Naomi's car without knowing what they'd actually done, awakened a ghost, with nothing left to lose. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to. Miss Naomi Williams jolted awake at the blaring of her alarm clock. Her eyes darted to the time, 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes later than she'd planned. Panic surged through her body as she threw off the covers and rushed to get ready. She had exactly 45 minutes to get herself and Jordan ready, or she'd be late for her shift at Sal's diner. Again. "Jordan, time to get up, baby," she called, hastily wrapping her hair and throwing on her pale blue waitress uniform. In the bedroom down the hall, her 10-year-old son groaned and pulled the covers over his head. "5 more minutes, Mom." "Not today, sweetheart. We're already running behind." Naomi's voice was firm but gentle. She'd been raising Jordan alone since his father walked out when he was 3. 7 years of daily juggling acts, of stretching dollars, of smiling through exhaustion. In the kitchen, Naomi frantically prepared Jordan's lunch: peanut butter, sandwich, apple slices, and the last juice box from the pantry. Jordan shuffled in, his backpack dragging behind him, eyes still heavy with sleep, shoelaces untied. "Your hair's not combed and your shirt's on backwards," Naomi said, turning him around and fixing his collar. "And please tie those shoes before you trip." They rushed down the stairs of their apartment building, past the flickering hallway light that the super had promised to fix 3 months ago. Outside, the morning air was already thick with humidity, promising another scorching summer day in Brookhaven. Naomi's faded blue sedan sat at the curb, a 12-year-old model with nearly 200,000 miles on it. The car represented her freedom, her lifeline to work, to Jordan's school, to survival itself. She turned the key and was met with a sputtering cough from the engine. "Come on, baby." "Not today," she whispered, trying again. The car wheezed, protested, then reluctantly rumbled to life. They arrived at Brookhaven Elementary with 5 minutes to spare. Naomi leaned over to kiss Jordan's forehead. "Have a good day. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." He slipped out of the car and jogged toward the building. Back on the road, Naomi pressed down on the accelerator. The engine made an ominous knocking sound, but she couldn't worry about that now. She was already going to be late. Sal's diner was already bustling when Naomi rushed through the back entrance at 8:07 a.m. She clocked in, tied her apron around her waist, and braced herself for Rick's disapproval. "Third time this month, Williams." Rick didn't even look up from the order tickets he was sorting. "I've got people lining up for your job." "It won't happen again," Naomi promised, the same words she'd said the last 2 times. "My car. I don't want excuses. I want you here on time." Rick finally looked at her, his pale face flushed with irritation. "One more late arrival, and you're done. Clear?" The morning rush was relentless. Naomi moved between tables with practiced efficiency, balancing plates, refilling coffee cups, forcing smiles for customers who barely acknowledged her existence. By 11 o'clock, her feet were throbbing in her worn-out sneakers. Table 7 was her breaking point. A middle-aged white man in an expensive suit snapped his fingers to get her attention. "Hey, sweetheart, this coffee's cold." Naomi reached for his cup. "I'll get you a fresh one, sir." He grabbed her wrist, his grip firm enough to make her wince. "Make sure it's hot this time. Some of us have real jobs to get back to." She pulled her arm away, feeling eyes on her from neighboring tables. "Yes, sir. Right away." In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall for a moment, blinking back tears of frustration. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan's school confirming his enrollment in the after-school program. Pickup time was 5:30 p.m. Her shift ended at 5 p.m. It would be tight, but manageable. By the time she clocked out at 5:03 p.m., Naomi was exhausted, but relieved. She had just enough time to pick up Jordan. Her relief was short-lived. When she turned the key in the ignition, her car made a horrible grinding noise, then went silent. She tried again. Nothing. Naomi checked her phone. 5:15 p.m. Jordan would be waiting in 15 minutes. She tried calling a cab, but the estimated wait time was 45 minutes. Her breathing quickened as anxiety tightened her chest. She tried. The ignition once more, and this time the engine sputtered briefly to life. Carefully, she eased onto the main road, the car shuddering beneath her. She made it 3 miles before disaster struck. On Maple Avenue, a busy 4-lane road, the engine made a terrible screeching sound and died completely. Naomi managed to coast to the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly. She reached for her phone, battery at 7%. Quickly, she texted Jordan. "Car trouble, trying to get there. Stay with Ms. Walker." With trembling fingers, she dialed the local towing company. The dispatcher promised someone would be there, as soon as possible. Her phone battery died moments later. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the roadway. Naomi sat in her dead car, feeling increasingly vulnerable as rush-hour traffic whizzed by. Blue and red lights flashed in her rear-view mirror. A police cruiser had pulled up behind her. Relief washed over her. Help had arrived sooner than expected. She watched as an officer stepped out of the vehicle. His nameplate read Hensley. Officer Travis Hensley approached her window, hand resting casually on his holstered weapon. Naomi rolled down her window and offered a grateful smile. "Thank goodness you're here, officer. My car broke down, and I need to pick up my son from school. Could you possibly call a tow truck for me? My phone died." Hensley's expression remained impassive. "License and registration." "Of course." Naomi reached for her glove compartment. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Hensley's voice suddenly sharpened. "Step out of the vehicle, now." Naomi froze, bewildered by the escalation. "Officer, I was just getting my registration. I said get out of the car." He unsnapped his holster. A second police cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Another officer emerged, younger, with a nervous energy about him. His nameplate read Dalton. "What seems to be the problem here?" Dalton asked. "Possibly stolen vehicle," Hensley replied, though Naomi had yet to show him any documentation. "Subject is being uncooperative." "Stolen?" Naomi's voice rose in disbelief. "This is my car. I've owned it for 6 years." Across the street, Naomi spotted a familiar figure, Jordan, walking along the sidewalk, his backpack bouncing against his small frame. He must have started walking when she didn't show up. His eyes widened as he took in the scene. "Jordan, stay there," Naomi called out, panic rising in her voice. Hensley spun around, hand now drawing his weapon. "Who are you talking to?" "My son. He's right there. Please, he's just a child." "Control your kid," Hensley snapped, before turning back to Naomi. "Turn around, hands behind your back." "What? Why?" Naomi couldn't believe what was happening. "I haven't done anything wrong. Last warning." "Turn around." Naomi complied, her entire body trembling. "Please, my son is watching. Don't do this in front of him." But Hensley wasn't listening. He grabbed her wrists roughly and slammed her forward, onto the hood of her car. The metal was still hot from the engine burning against her cheek. "Mom!" Jordan's scream cut through the air. He started running toward them. "Stay back!" Officer Dalton intercepted the boy, holding him by the shoulders. Tears streamed down Naomi's face as handcuffs bit into her wrists. "Please don't hurt my son." A small crowd had gathered now, watching silently from a safe distance. Cell phones were out recording the scene, but nobody intervened. "We got a tip about drugs being transported in this vehicle," Hensley announced loudly. "We're going to conduct a search." "There are no drugs in my car," Naomi protested. I'm a waitress. I was picking up my son from school. What happened next would replay in Naomi's nightmares for months to come. The officers didn't just search her car, they destroyed it. Hensley slashed the upholstery with a pocket knife, ripping open seats. Dalton smashed the glove compartment, scattering her insurance papers across the asphalt. They tore out the center console, broke the dashboard, and even punctured all 4 tires with quick, deliberate jabs. "Stop! Please stop!" Naomi begged, watching helplessly as they demolished her only means of transportation. Jordan was sobbing now, his small body shaking as he stood on the sidewalk. In his hand, Naomi noticed his phone, cracked screen pointed toward the officers, recording. After 15 minutes of methodical destruction, the search concluded. No drugs were found, as Naomi knew would be the case. Hensley approached her again, leaning in close. His breath was hot against her ear as he whispered, "Tell your kind to stay in line. This isn't your neighborhood." He uncuffed her with deliberate roughness. "You're free to go, but this vehicle is being impounded as evidence." "Evidence of what?" Naomi asked, rubbing her wrists. "You found nothing. Resisting an officer, potential drug trafficking." Hensley smirked. "My body cam malfunctioned, so it'll be your word against mine." A tow truck arrived, not the one Naomi had called, but one summoned by the officers. The driver avoided making eye contact as he hooked up her mutilated car. "You can retrieve your vehicle from the impound lot after paying the appropriate fees," Dalton informed her mechanically. "Have a nice day, ma'am." The officers departed, leaving Naomi and Jordan standing on the side of the road. The crowd dispersed quickly, no one offering help or acknowledging what they'd witnessed. Jordan ran to his mother, burying his face in her waitress uniform. "Mom, why did they do that?" "Why?" Naomi held him close, her body still trembling with shock and rage. "I don't know, baby. I don't know." They walked 3 miles to the nearest bus stop, rode for 45 minutes, then walked another mile to reach their apartment. By the time they arrived home, it was past 9 p.m. Neither had eaten dinner. Jordan hadn't finished his homework, and Naomi had no car to drive to work tomorrow. As Jordan finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, Naomi sat at their small kitchen table and stared at the wall. Without a car, she would lose her job. Without her job, they would lose their apartment. The cycle of poverty would tighten its grip once more. She picked up her phone, now charged, and scrolled through her contacts. There was no one to call. Friends couldn't afford to help. Family was scattered or estranged, except for one person, her brother Malik. They hadn't spoken in years, not since he'd enlisted and disappeared into classified missions overseas. As midnight approached, a Greyhound bus pulled into the station in a neighboring city. Among the few passengers disembarking was a rugged black man in his mid-30s. He wore faded military cargo pants and a plain black t-shirt. A duffel bag was slung over one shoulder. Malik Thompson stepped off the bus and squinted in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the station. His face bore the weathered look of someone who had seen too much. He lit a cigarette and took a long drag, scanning his surroundings with the hypervigilance of a man accustomed to danger. "Excuse me," he asked a passing janitor. "How far to Brookhaven? From here?" "About 20 miles south," the janitor replied. "You got someone picking you up?" Malik shook his head. "No, nobody knows I'm coming." The knock on Naomi's apartment door came at 2:17 a.m., 3 sharp raps, precise and deliberate. She was still awake, too wired from the day's trauma to sleep. "Who is it?" she called, one hand on the baseball bat she kept by the door. "It's me," 2 simple words in a deep, gravelly voice she hadn't heard in years. Before Naomi could respond, Jordan had woken up and approached the door. "Who's there, Mom?" Naomi unlocked the door, keeping the chain in place, and opened it a crack. The face that greeted her was both familiar and strange. Her brother's features, but hardened, scarred, eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine. Jordan peered around her, his face transforming from sleepy confusion to wide-eyed recognition. "Uncle Malik?" Malik's stern expression softened slightly as he looked down at his nephew. "Hey, little man. You've grown." Naomi unlatched the chain and opened the door fully. her expression a complex mixture of relief, concern, and guarded suspicion. Malik, it's been 5 years. 4 years, 8 months, Malik corrected, stepping inside with the precise movements of a man always aware of his surroundings. His eyes scanned the apartment, taking in exits, windows, potential threats. A habit, formed in war zones. Jordan was suddenly wide awake, staring at his uncle with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. The boy had been 6 when Malik last visited, right before his final deployment. "Why don't you go back to bed, Jordan? You have school tomorrow," Naomi suggested gently. "But Mom..." "It's okay, buddy," Malik interjected. "I'll be here in the morning, promise." Reluctantly, Jordan retreated to his bedroom, looking back several times before closing his door. Silence fell between the siblings as they sat at the small kitchen table. Naomi made coffee, more for something to do with her hands than from any desire for caffeine at this hour. "Afghanistan?" Naomi finally asked, placing a chipped mug in front of him. Malik nodded. "Among other places. We thought you were dead for a while. No letters, no calls." Her voice remained neutral, but the hurt was evident. It was better that way. Better for who? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Malik sipped his coffee, eyes fixed on some middle distance. "I got your message. About what happened today." Naomi had texted him in a moment of desperation, never expecting a response. "I didn't think you'd come. Family's family." Simple words, weighted with unspoken history. She told him everything then. About the car, the officers, the humiliation, Jordan witnessing it all. As she spoke, Malik's expression remained impassive, but his eyes grew colder, his jaw tightening, imperceptibly. "These officers, you got names?" "One was Hensley, Travis Hensley." Naomi watched her brother carefully. "Does that name mean something to you?" Malik's face betrayed nothing. "This town's not that big." Later, Malik settled on the couch, refusing Naomi's offer of her bed. After she retired to her room, he sat in darkness staring at the wall. Sleep came reluctantly, and when it did, it brought the ghosts. In his dream, he was back in a remote Afghan village. The mission had gone wrong. There was blood on his hands. Screaming in the distance, a superior officer telling him, "This never happened, Thompson, understand?" Then the scene shifted to a military courtroom, accusations flying, his service record being torn apart, the word dishonorable echoing like a gunshot. Malik woke with a gasp, sweat soaking his shirt. He checked his watch. 5:30 a.m. Force of. Habit had him surveying the room, cataloging exits, potential weapons, threats. It took a moment to remember he was in his sister's apartment, not a combat zone. By the time Naomi and Jordan emerged for breakfast, Malik had showered and was preparing eggs and toast in the small kitchen. "Uncle Malik, were you really a sniper?" Jordan asked through a mouthful of eggs, eyes wide with childlike fascination. Naomi shot her son a warning look. "Jordan, that's not..." "It's okay," Malik interrupted, setting his own plate down. "Yes, I was, but that's not something to romanticize. It was a job." "Did you shoot bad guys?" Malik's expression darkened momentarily. "The world isn't divided into good guys and bad guys, Jordan. Sometimes good people do bad things for what they think are right reasons." Jordan frowned, processing this complexity. "But you protected people, right?" "That's what I tried to do." Malik reached across the table, his scarred hand gentle on Jordan's shoulder. "Listen, while I'm here, I want to teach you something important. It's called situational awareness." "What's that?" "It means always knowing what's happening around you, noticing details most people miss." Malik pointed out the window. "See that blue car across the street? How long has it been there?" Jordan shrugged. "I don't know." "That's okay. But from now on, I want you to start noticing. The cars on your street, the people who don't belong, exits in every room you enter. Information keeps you safe." Naomi watched this exchange with mixed emotions. Her brother was teaching her son survival skills, necessary ones perhaps, but it saddened her that they were necessary at all. After Jordan left for school, Malik announced his intention to visit the impound lot where Naomi's car had been taken. "What's the point?" Naomi asked. The car's destroyed. We can't afford to get it out, much less repair it. I need to see it for myself. Malik's tone left no room for argument. I want to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. The Brookhaven Municipal Impound Lot was a fenced compound on the outskirts of town, guarded by a single board attendant in a small booth. Malik approached on foot, having taken the bus as close as possible. He wore sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low, making himself forgettable, another skill learned in combat. I'm here about a vehicle brought in yesterday, he told the attendant. Blue sedan, registered to Naomi Williams. The attendant barely looked up from his phone. Family only, and there's a $500 release fee plus daily storage. I'm her brother, Malik Thompson. He slid his ID through the small opening in the booth's window. The attendant glanced at it, then made a call. After a brief conversation, he hung up and returned the ID. Sorry, that vehicle's on hold. Police investigation. Malik had expected this. Can I at least see it? Assess the damage? No visitors allowed on the lot without authorization. Malik thanked him politely and walked away. But instead of leaving the area, he found a vantage point nearby, a small rise that offered a clear view of the compound. He settled in, watching with the patience of a man who had once spent 3 days motionless in a desert hide, waiting for a single shot. He noted the guard rotations, camera placements, fence weaknesses. He observed which employees took smoke breaks and when, which areas of the lot had blind spots. Most importantly, he spotted Naomi's car, or what was left of it, parked in a back corner, already stripped of its wheels and battery. Returning to Naomi's neighborhood, Malik noticed something troubling. Neighbors who had previously been friendly, with his sister now avoided eye contact. When Naomi waved to an elderly woman she'd once helped with groceries, the woman hurried inside her apartment without acknowledging her. How long has this been going on? Malik asked as they walked back from the bus stop. Since yesterday, Naomi replied quietly. News travels fast here. Nobody wants trouble with the police. Even when the police are the ones causing trouble? Especially then. That evening, while Naomi helped Jordan with homework, Malik slipped out. He had an old contact in town, David Briggs, a former Army communications specialist who'd served in Malik's unit before an IED took part of his left leg. Briggs had always been good with computers, better than good. If anyone could access sealed police records, it would be him. Briggs lived in a small house converted into a tech cave, walls lined with monitors and hard drives. His prosthetic leg was propped against the wall as he swiveled in his chair to face Malik. Holy shit, Thompson? Thought you were dead. Not for lack of trying. Malik clasped his old friend's hand. I need your help, Briggs. Whatever you need, brother. Infantry sticks together. Malik explained the situation with Naomi's car, Officer Hensley, and his suspicions about deeper corruption. Briggs listened, fingers already dancing across his keyboard. Hensley Travis. Been with Brookhaven PD 8 years. Excessive force complaints, all dismissed. Has a brother in federal service? Briggs looked up. Ring any bells? Malik's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. Keep digging. I need to know his patterns, his associates, everything. The next morning, Malik visited the Brookhaven Police Department, wearing his most non-threatening outfit, khakis and a button-down shirt. He approached the front desk with a fabricated story about harassment at his sister's apartment building. As he filled out paperwork, a door opened, and Officer Travis Hensley emerged. Their eyes met across the lobby. For a moment, Hensley looked confused, then recognition dawned on his face, a mixture of surprise and something like fear quickly masked by aggression. Didn't think I'd see you again, Hensley said, approaching, slowly. Not in this town. Just visiting family, Malik replied evenly. Funny coincidence running into you. Hensley's pale face flushed slightly. Nothing stays buried forever, I guess. No, Malik agreed, eyes never leaving Hensley's. It doesn't. The tension between them was palpable, years of history compressed into that brief exchange. Hensley was the first to break eye contact, muttering something about being on patrol as he hurried out. That night, As Jordan slept, Naomi confronted her brother in the kitchen. "What was between you and Hensley? And don't tell me it's nothing. I saw your face when I mentioned his name." Malik was silent for a long moment. "We went to high school together." "And?" "Senior year. Football championship. I was quarterback. He was on the opposing team's defense. I embarrassed him on a play, broke his tackle, scored the winning touchdown." Malik's voice was flat, recounting facts rather than emotions. "After the game, he and some friends jumped me in the parking lot, put me in the hospital." "My God, Malik." "That's not all. He said things while they were beating me. The kind of things you don't forget." Malik's jaw tightened. "I heard he tried to join the army after graduation but washed out of basic training. Couldn't handle it." Naomi absorbed this information, connecting dots. "So what happened yesterday was personal. He recognized your last name. Thompson isn't common around here. But you've been gone for years. Why would he? Some hatreds don't need reasons to stay alive. They just do." Malik stood up, ending the conversation. "I need to get something. From storage. I'll be back." The storage unit was on the edge of town, one of those anonymous facilities where people keep the things they can't let go of, but don't want to look at every day. Malik unlocked Unit 247 and pulled up the metal door. Inside was a single item, a military footlocker secured with heavy padlocks. He knelt beside it, entering a combination that his fingers remembered even after years. The locks opened with a satisfying click. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay the POW, tools of his former trade, a disassembled sniper rifle, advanced optics, encrypted drives, and tactical gear. Everything the army thought they'd confiscated when they discharged him. When he returned to the apartment, Naomi was waiting up. Her face showed concern as she noticed the determined set of his jaw. "What are you planning, Malik?" "They messed with the wrong family," he replied, setting down his recovered gear. "You said it yourself in your message." "I was angry. I didn't mean—" "You were right." Malik's voice was quiet but resolute. "This isn't just about a car. It's about Jordan, watching his mother be humiliated. It's about a system that's been corrupt for years. It's about making sure it never happens again." "Please don't make things worse," Naomi pleaded. "We have to live in this town after you're gone." Malik looked at his sister, his expression softening slightly. "When I left for Afghanistan, I promised Dad I'd look after you. I failed. Not this time." Outside, in a police cruiser parked 2 blocks away, Officer Hensley sat watching the apartment building. Radio silent, eyes fixed on the 3rd floor, window where Malik's shadow moved behind the curtains. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his breathing uneven. "You shouldn't have come back," he whispered to himself, reaching for his phone to make a call. "You really shouldn't have come back." The morning after Malik's confrontation with Hensley at the police station, he left before dawn. Naomi found only a hastily scribbled note. "Back tonight. Lock the doors." With Jordan at school, the apartment felt eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the occasional ping of her phone as job rejections rolled in. Without a car, her options were severely limited. Across town, Malik was conducting what military intelligence would call a reconnaissance mission. He'd spent the early hours tracking a tow truck from the municipal impound lot, following at a safe distance as it made its way to an industrial area on the outskirts of Brookhaven. The truck pulled into a large warehouse with rusted siding and a faded sign reading Premium Auto Parts. Malik parked his borrowed car, courtesy of Briggs, half a block away, and observed through compact binoculars. The driver unloaded a vehicle that had clearly been in an accident, its front end crumpled. But what caught Malik's attention was the blue sedan being worked on inside the open warehouse door, Naomi's car. Even from this distance, he could see it was already being dismantled. The doors had been removed, the remaining tires taken off, and a worker was spraying the frame with primer, preparing it for a new color. A vehicle reported as evidence in an ongoing investigation shouldn't be here, being stripped for parts. As Malik shifted position for a better view, a Hispanic man in coveralls emerged from behind the building, lighting a cigarette. He leaned against the wall, watching Malik with unconcealed suspicion. After a moment, he approached. "Looking for something?" The man's voice was gruff but not hostile. Malik straightened up, abandoning any pretense of hiding. "Just curious what happens to cars after the police impound them." The man stared at him, then at the warehouse, then back at Malik. His eyes narrowed in recognition. "You're Thompson's brother, aren't you? The one who went to the sandbox?" Malik remained expressionless. "How would you know that?" The man tossed his cigarette, grinding it under his boot. "I towed her car. I didn't know they were gonna do that. To it." He glanced nervously at the warehouse. "Look, you didn't hear it from me, but you should walk away from this. It goes higher than you think." "Who are you?" Malik asked. "Sean Mendez. I work for Brookhaven Towing." He took a step back. "And if anyone asks, we never spoke." Across town at the Brookhaven Police Department, Detective Angela Ruiz sat at her desk, frowning at her computer screen. At 34, she was the youngest detective in the department and the only woman of color on the force. This made her both highly visible and paradoxically easy to ignore. For weeks, she'd been tracking anomalies in the department's vehicle impound records. Cars seized during traffic stops or arrests were disappearing from the system, yet the system showed proper disposition. No red flags, except that the paper trail didn't match the digital trail. "What are you still doing with that?" A voice startled her. Ryan Barnes, an intern from the local college, stood nearby with a stack of files. Ruiz minimized her screen. "Just tying up loose ends. Captain Blake said you were told to drop it." Barnes lowered his voice. "Just looking out for you, Detective." Ruiz offered a tight smile. "I appreciate that, Ryan. I'm just being thorough." After Barnes left, Ruiz reopened her files, adding a new name to her investigation. Sean Mendez, Brookhaven Towing. That afternoon, Jordan returned from school to find his mother preparing for a job interview. One of 3 she had scheduled that day, all requiring multiple bus transfers to reach. "How was school?" Naomi asked, applying mascara with a steady hand despite her exhaustion. Jordan dropped his backpack on the kitchen table. "Fine." His voice was subdued. "Mom, can I show Uncle Malik something when he gets back?" "What is it, baby?" Jordan pulled out his phone, the screen even more cracked now, and pressed play on a video. "I recorded it, when they were hurting you and destroying the car." Naomi's hands froze. The video was shaky, clearly taken by a frightened child hiding behind a tree, but it captured everything. Hensley's unnecessary aggression, the violent search, even the moment he leaned in to whisper his threat to Naomi. "Jordan, why didn't you tell me you had this?" "I was scared they would take it." His voice was small. "Can Uncle Malik use it to make them pay?" Naomi hugged her son tightly, his courage bringing tears to her eyes. "This is important evidence, but it might not be enough by itself. Mrs. Henry might have more." Jordan looked up at his mother. Her doorbell camera faces the street where it happened. Naomi had nearly forgotten about their elderly neighbor's Ring camera. Dolores Henry, a retired teacher in her 70s, had installed it after a series of porch thefts last year. "After I finish my interviews, we'll go talk to her," Naomi promised. That evening, Malik returned to find Naomi at the kitchen table, a new USB drive in front of her. Her planned interviews had yielded nothing, but her visit to Mrs. Henry had been surprisingly productive. "She was scared," Naomi explained, "but she believes in doing what's right. She gave me this footage from her doorbell camera. It shows everything from a distance, including Hensley telling the other officer to switch off his body cam." Malik plugged the drive into his laptop. The footage was clear, capturing the entire incident from an elevated angle across the street. Combined with Jordan's close-up video, it told a damning story. "This is good," Malik said, "but we need more. If this goes viral without proper context, the department will just claim it's an isolated incident, not a pattern." "I could tell my story online," Naomi suggested. "Maybe others will come forward." Malik considered this. "It's risky, but it might work as a distraction while we dig deeper." The next day, Naomi posted a 3-minute video detailing her experience. She was articulate, dignified, and specific, naming officers, times, and locations. She ended with a simple plea. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. Please reach out. The video gained modest traction locally, earning a few hundred views and supportive comments. But it also attracted trolls, many with profile pictures featuring blue line flags, leaving threatening messages. That night, the sound of shattering glass jolted them awake. A brick had been thrown through the living room window, wrapped in paper bearing a crude drawing of a target. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Naomi said, sweeping up glass while Malik checked outside. They're trying to frighten us. No, Malik corrected. They're scared of us. At the police department, Detective Ruiz was making progress. She'd connected the dots between impounded vehicles, specific officers' involvement, and an auction house, called Second Chance Auto, owned by City Councilman Kenneth Rourke. The pattern was clear. Vehicles were being illegally seized, stripped for parts, then either sold at auction or reported as destroyed while actually being refurbished and sold privately. She was preparing a warrant request when Captain Blake called her into his office. Ruiz, I hear you're still poking around in the impound records. Blake's tone was conversational, but his eyes were cold. Just clearing up some inconsistencies, sir. Blake leaned forward. Let me be clear. That investigation is closed. We have more important matters, like this Williams woman stirring up trouble with false accusations online. With respect, sir, I've seen the footage. Those accusations don't appear false. Blake's expression hardened. You're suspended, effective immediately. Administrative leave, pending review of your conduct. Badge and gun, please. As Ruiz placed her badge on the desk, Blake added, Consider this friendly advice, Angela. Some roads are better left untraveled. Meanwhile, Malik had begun his own form of intelligence gathering. Using skills honed in Afghanistan, he installed discreet surveillance cameras overlooking the impound lot and the warehouse. He tracked patrol patterns, documented license plates, and built a comprehensive picture of the operation. One evening, he captured footage of an off-duty officer Dalton, Hensley's partner during Naomi's incident, entering the warehouse in civilian clothes, emerging 30 minutes later with an envelope that he tucked into his jacket. When Briggs analyzed the data from Malik's surveillance, the picture became clearer. It's a racket, Briggs explained, spreading printouts across his cluttered desk. They target specific types of vehicles, usually driven by people without resources to fight back. The cars disappear, parts get sold, and the vehicles get rebuilt with new VINs. Who's running it? Malik asked. That's the interesting part. Briggs pulled up a financial chart. Money flows from the auction house to shell companies, then to offshore accounts, then back to companies owned by city officials. It's laundering 101, but effective. That night, as Naomi helped Jordan with homework, Malik sat on the apartment balcony smoking a rare cigarette. The past weighed heavily on him. The things he'd seen and done in service to a country that now viewed him as a disgrace. Naomi joined him, wrapping her cardigan tightly against the evening chill. You never told me what really happened. Why you were discharged. Malik took a long drag, the ember glowing orange in the darkness. Our unit was supporting a CIA operation near the Pakistan border, supposedly targeting insurgents, but I realized we were actually providing security for a weapons sale, American arms going to local warlords. That's not what you signed up for. No. Malik's voice was flat. When I reported it up the chain, suddenly I was facing murder charges. A CIA operative was found dead, shot from a distance only a skilled sniper could manage. Did you? No, but it didn't matter. They had my rifle, my position recorded on GPS. The choice was simple. Accept a dishonorable discharge or face a military trial where all the evidence was stacked against me. Naomi placed a hand on her brother's arm. Why didn't you tell us? To protect you. Men like that don't stop at ruining one life. Malik stubbed out his cigarette. The CIA operative's name was Michael Hensley. Naomi's eyes widened. Travis Hensley's brother? The world's smaller than you think. Malik stood, his decision made. We need to move fast. They know we're digging. As they turned to go inside, Naomi's phone pinged with a notification. An anonymous message contained a single photo of Jordan walking home from school, taken earlier that day, with the text, Your brother's next. The threat against Jordan changed everything. That night, Malik implemented what military strategists call asymmetric tactics, fighting against a stronger opponent by exploiting their weaknesses rather than engaging directly. A severe thunderstorm provided the perfect cover. As lightning cracked overhead, Malik disabled the power to the impound lot, cutting the primary lines and then systematically neutralizing the backup generators. Years of training and sabotage behind enemy lines made the job quick and precise. In the confusion that followed, security cameras went dark. Emergency protocols were activated, but the skeleton night crew was overwhelmed. By the time power was restored 3 hours later, Malik had mapped the entire facility, identified security weaknesses, and planted listening devices in key locations. "You're playing a dangerous game," Shawn Mendez warned when Malik approached him the next day. They met at a diner 20 miles outside Brookhaven, where neither would be recognized. "I'm not playing anything," Malik replied. "They threatened my nephew." Shawn's face hardened. "Kids should be off limits." He slid a USB drive across the table. Invoices, delivery schedules, contact lists. "I've done wrong, but I'm not dirty like them. Why help me now? Because I've got a son too." Shawn looked away. "And because what they did to your sister's car wasn't right. They normally just take them. They don't destroy them in front of kids." Across town, Detective Angela Ruiz was cleaning out her desk when her phone rang. A blocked number. "Detective Ruiz, this is Naomi Williams. I think we need to talk." They met at a coffee shop near the community college, away from police hangouts. Ruiz, still in civilian clothes with her badge absent, listened as Naomi shared Jordan's video and Mrs. Henry's footage. "I've been building a case for months," Ruiz admitted. "But they shut me down yesterday. Suspended. Because you were getting close? Because the whole system is compromised." Ruiz showed Naomi her findings, phone logs linking Captain Blake to the auction house, financial records connecting both to Councilman Rourke, and a pattern of over 300 illegally seized vehicles. "What can we do?" Naomi asked. "Officially, nothing. I'm suspended." Ruiz's expression hardened. "Unofficially, I still have friends in the state prosecutor's office, but we need more concrete evidence, the kind that can't be buried." As they spoke, Naomi's video was gaining traction online. A local black activist group called Brookhaven Justice Coalition had shared it, adding context about similar incidents in the community. The precinct issued a statement painting Naomi as emotionally unstable and claiming the video was heavily edited, but the damage was done. People were watching, questioning, demanding answers. The pressure was building, and Hensley felt it. That afternoon, he followed Jordan as the boy walked home from school. He kept his distance, staying in his personal vehicle, a black pickup truck with tinted windows. But his intention was clear: intimidation. What Hensley didn't expect was Malik. A block from the school, Malik emerged from between two buildings, cutting off Hensley's truck. With the precision of a combat veteran, he approached the driver's side, his movements fluid and controlled. Hensley reached for his off-duty weapon, but Malik was faster, yanking open the door and disarming him in one smooth motion. Following. "Children now, Officer Hensley?" Malik's voice was calm, his grip on Hensley's wrist just tight enough to cause pain without leaving marks. "This is assault on a police officer," Hensley sputtered, his confidence evaporating. "No, this is a concerned uncle having a friendly chat." Malik leaned closer. "If I see you near my nephew again, we'll have a different conversation, one you won't walk away from." Hensley's face flushed with anger and fear. "Your kind always resorts to threats." "My kind? You mean decorated veterans?" Malik released Hensley's wrist and stepped back. "Drive away, now." Jordan had witnessed the confrontation from a distance. When Malik reached him, the boy was trembling. "Was that one of them? The officers from that day?" "Yes, but he won't bother you again." Malik placed a reassuring hand on Jordan's shoulder. "You okay?" Jordan's eyes welled with tears. "I just want things to go back to normal. Mom's sad all the time, and people at school are talking about us." Malik knelt to eye level with his nephew. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. But I promise you this, I'm not leaving until your mom is safe. You're safe. And those responsible are held accountable. That night, Malik executed the next phase of his plan. He intercepted Hensley's patrol car on a quiet road, using a simple distraction technique to force him to pull over. What followed wasn't pretty, brutal, but contained confrontation that left Hensley with a bloody nose and a clear message. You have two choices, Malik told him, pinning the officer against his own vehicle. Confess to what you've been doing, or I start releasing evidence piece by piece. Your career, your freedom, gone. You've got nothing, Hensley sneered. Blood dripping down his chin. I have everything. The warehouse, the auctions, the kickbacks. Your brother's connections that keep it all quiet. Malik tightened his grip. I even have the offshore account numbers. How's Cayman First Bank treating you? The color drained from Hensley's face. You're bluffing. Try me. Malik released him and walked away, leaving Hensley shaken and uncertain. Meanwhile, Ruiz was facing her own pressure. Captain Blake had arranged a meeting with her and the police union representative, offering a promotion to sergeant and a transfer to a prestigious department in exchange for her silence. It's a good deal, Angela, the union rep urged. Clean slate, fresh start, significant pay increase. And all I have to do is forget about hundreds of citizens being robbed by the people sworn to protect them? Ruiz stood up. No, thank you. That night, her apartment was ransacked. Nothing was stolen, but the message was clear. Back off or face consequences. Instead of cowering, Ruiz doubled down. She contacted her source at the state prosecutor's office, sharing everything she had gathered. Dolores. Henry had been watching events unfold from her apartment window. At 76, she had lived in Brookhaven her entire life and had seen patterns of injustice repeat themselves decade after decade. When a local journalist reached out following Naomi's video, she made her decision. I've been silent too long, she told the reporter, her voice steady despite her nervousness. What happened to that young woman and her son was a disgrace to our community. I have footage from my security camera that shows the entire incident. The journalist was skeptical. Ma'am, are you sure you want to get involved? These are serious accusations against police officers. Mrs. Henry's spine straightened, decades of teaching unruly children giving her unexpected courage. Young man, I taught school in this town for 42 years. I've watched good people stay quiet while bad things happen. Not this time. The journalist's story ran the next day, featuring Mrs. Henry's clear, damning footage. The response was immediate. Phone calls flooded the police department, the mayor's office, and the local news station. Social media exploded with demands for accountability. Just as momentum was building, disaster struck. Naomi and Jordan returned from a community meeting to find their apartment building surrounded by fire trucks. A blaze had started in their unit, spreading quickly to neighboring apartments. Arson was suspected immediately. From across the street, Malik watched the flames, his expression hard as granite. In his hand, he held his disassembled sniper rifle, now reassembled and cleaned. The time for subtle tactics was over. It's time, he said to himself, turning to walk into the shadows. They've left me no choice. Smoke still hung in the air as Malik led Naomi and Jordan away from their burning apartment building. Neighbors stood in shocked clusters on the street, some crying, others angrily demanding answers from the firefighters. The blaze had been contained to 3 units, but Naomi's apartment was completely destroyed, all their possessions gone, reduced to ash and melted plastic. Where will we go? Jordan asked, his voice small, clutching his backpack, the only possession he'd managed to save. I have a place, Malik answered, guiding them toward a waiting car where Briggs sat behind the wheel. Somewhere they won't find us. 2 hours later, they arrived at a small cabin nestled in dense woods about 30 miles outside Brookhaven. The structure was simple but solid, 1 bedroom, a main living area with a pull-out couch, and a kitchenette. Solar panels on the roof provided minimal electricity, and a generator stood ready for backup. Veterans retreat, Malik explained as he unlocked the door. Used to be a place for guys coming home needing quiet. Owner died last year, but the trust still maintains it. Hardly anyone knows it exists. Naomi surveyed the rustic interior. How long do we stay here? Until it's over. Malik's tone left. No room for debate. They've escalated to arson. Next time could be worse. Jordan explored the cabin with curious eyes, his resilience remarkable despite the trauma of the past days. He found a deck of cards in a drawer and a few paperback novels on a shelf, small comforts in their temporary exile. That night, after Jordan had fallen asleep on the pull-out couch, Naomi found Malik on the porch, cleaning his rifle with practiced precision. "What's the plan now?" she asked, wrapping herself in a borrowed blanket against the night chill. "Digital warfare first." Malik continued his methodical work. Briggs has been compiling everything: Sean's documents, surveillance footage, financial records. Tomorrow, we start releasing it under an anonymous account, piece by piece. You're talking about doxing police officers. I'm talking about exposing criminals. Malik's hands never paused in their work. Public pressure is our most powerful weapon right now. The next morning, the first files appeared online, redacted documents showing vehicle seizure patterns in predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods. By afternoon, the leak had expanded to include internal emails between Captain Blake and officers discussing target vehicles and profit margins. Local news stations picked up the story cautiously, referring to alleged misconduct while showing portions of the documents on screen. Mayor Richard Landon called an emergency press conference, flanked by Captain Blake and Councilman Kenneth Rourke. The aging mayor, in office for 16 years, appeared genuinely flustered as he addressed the gathering of reporters. "These fabricated documents are a clear attempt to undermine public trust in our police department," Landon declared, his jowls quivering with indignation. "Brookhaven PD has my complete confidence, and this administration will not be swayed by fake news and digital manipulation." A reporter from the Brookhaven Gazette raised her hand. "Mayor Landon, what about the video evidence from multiple sources showing Officer Hensley destroying Ms. Williams's vehicle? Is that fabricated as well?" "That incident is under internal investigation," Captain Blake interjected smoothly. "We cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, but I assure you that the Brookhaven Police Department holds its officers to the highest standards of conduct." As the press conference continued, Sean Mendez sat in his apartment across town, watching with growing unease. His phone had been ringing all day. Calls from the towing company, from Officer Dalton, from a number he recognized as Captain Blake's private line. He'd ignored them all. Sean's hands trembled slightly as he set up his laptop camera. He'd made his decision during a sleepless night, weighing his complicity against his conscience. For 3 years, he'd been a part of the scheme. Towing cars, on command, looking the other way when vehicles disappeared from the lot, accepting cash bonuses for special jobs. "My name is Sean Mendez," he began, looking directly into the camera. "I work for Brookhaven Towing, and for the past 3 years I've been part of an illegal operation involving the Brookhaven Police Department, city officials, and private businesses." For the next 20 minutes, Sean detailed the entire operation: how vehicles were flagged for seizure, how paperwork was falsified, how parts were stripped and sold through a network of shops across 3 states. He named names, provided dates, and described specific vehicles, including Naomi's blue sedan. "I'm recording this because I can't live with myself anymore," he concluded. "What happened to Naomi Williams and her son crossed a line. I have copies of all relevant documents, and I've sent them to multiple news outlets and the state attorney general's office." Sean saved the video file, attached it to multiple emails addressed to local media, Detective Ruiz, and as a backup, Malik. His finger hovered over the send button for just a moment before pressing it decisively. Meanwhile, at the veterans' cabin, Briggs had arrived with supplies and new burner phones. The tech specialist had set up a makeshift command center on the dining table: 3 laptops, a satellite internet connection, and various electronic devices Malik couldn't identify. "We've got movement," Briggs announced, pointing to one of the screens. Blake just called an emergency meeting at the station. Closed doors, senior officers only. They're panicking, Malik noted with grim satisfaction. What about our insider? Ruiz is good. She's already shared everything with the state attorney's office and her contacts at the FBI. They're hesitant to move without more concrete evidence, but she's pushing. Jordan had been listening quietly from the corner, where he was pretending to read. Is Ms. Ruiz going to be okay? They already broke into her apartment. Malik and Naomi exchanged concerned glances. Jordan was absorbing everything, processing the danger with maturity beyond his years. She's tough, Malik assured him, and smart. She's staying with friends, changing locations every night. The truth was more complicated. Angela Ruiz was indeed moving between safe houses, but the strain was showing. Earlier that day, she'd noticed a black SUV following her from her friend's apartment to a coffee shop. The same vehicle appeared again when she left for a meeting with her lawyer. She'd managed to lose the tail, but the message was clear. They were watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. Ruiz knew the risks when she'd committed to this fight. As the daughter of a civil rights activist and the sister of a young man who died in police custody 10 years earlier, she'd joined the force with clear eyes and a burning desire to change the system from within. Now that system was turning against her, but she had prepared for this moment. Every piece of evidence was backed up, distributed to trusted allies, and ready for release at a moment's notice. That afternoon, Ruiz visited the office of State Prosecutor Eleanor Matthews, bringing with her a comprehensive file on the Brookhaven corruption case. This is explosive material, Detective, Matthews said after reviewing the documents. But without more direct evidence linking Mayor Landon and Councilman Rourke to the operation, it's going to be difficult to prosecute beyond the officers directly involved. What about the financial records? Ruiz pointed to a series of transactions. These shell companies all lead back to Rourke, through 3 layers of separation. His lawyers will claim he had no knowledge. Matthews removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes tiredly. We need someone on the inside to flip, someone high enough in the chain to implicate the leadership. As they spoke, Malik was executing his own plan. Having studied the patrol patterns around the warehouse, he identified a vulnerability, a 15-minute window between shift changes when surveillance was minimal. Using the darkness as cover, he infiltrated the building through a service entrance, bypassing the simple alarm system with techniques learned during special operations training. Inside, he found a treasure trove of evidence, vehicles in various stages of dismantling, including several that matched descriptions from recent drug stops in minority neighborhoods. He placed small, undetectable cameras in strategic locations and downloaded files from the office computer onto a flash drive. As he was preparing to leave, headlights swept across the warehouse windows. Malik melted into the shadows as 2 men entered. Officer Dalton and a civilian Malik recognized from his surveillance photos as Lucas Hayes, the warehouse manager. They were arguing intensely. This is falling apart, Dalton hissed. Sean's gone dark, the department's under investigation, and the mayor's breathing down our necks. Calm down, Hayes replied. We've weathered investigations before. Clean house, destroy records, lay low for a few months. Standard procedure. This is different, Dalton insisted. Someone's feeding information to the press. And that Thompson guy, the sniper, he's connected to the Williams woman. He's dangerous. So handle him, Hayes said dismissively. Blake's authorized whatever resources you need. Malik recorded the entire conversation before slipping out the way he'd come in. The evidence was mounting, but he knew they were still missing the direct link to the leadership, the smoking gun that would bring down the entire operation. That night, Captain Blake and Councilman Rourke met at City Hall, unaware that their security had already been compromised. Malik had earlier planted a listening device under the conference room table during a public meeting, anticipating exactly this kind of late-night conversation. We need to contain this now. Blake's voice came through clearly on Briggs's equipment. Hensley's becoming a liability. He's unraveling, talking too much. Then handle it, Rourke replied coldly. We've invested too much to let one hothead officer bring everything down. And what about the woman? Her brother? Make it go away, Rourke said after a pause. "Whatever it takes. I'll speak to the mayor, make sure he understands what's at stake." Briggs looked at Malik. "That's conspiracy to obstruct justice, possibly conspiracy to commit murder. We've got them." "Not yet," Malik replied. "We need to draw them out, force them to act openly where they can't deny it." The opportunity came sooner than expected. The following morning, Shawn Mendes's video confession went viral, picked up by national news networks and shared hundreds of thousands of times on social media. Within hours, Brookhaven corruption and justice for Naomi were trending nationwide. The response was swift and brutal. Shawn's apartment was raided by Brookhaven police under the pretense of a drug investigation. When they didn't find him, officers trashed the place, planting evidence that was conveniently discovered and reported to the press, attempting to paint Shawn as a disgruntled, drug-addicted employee with a vendetta against the department. They didn't know was that Shawn had already fled, following Malik's instructions to go to a specific motel outside of Brookhaven's jurisdiction and wait. But that evening, despite his precautions, Shawn was found. Not by the police, but by Hensley. Acting, alone, unhinged, and out for blood. The confrontation in the motel room was brief and violent. Hensley, no longer wearing his uniform, burst in with his service weapon drawn. Shawn didn't stand a chance. By the time Malik arrived, responding to an urgent text from Shawn, it was too late. Shawn lay bleeding on the floor, gasping his final words. "Rourke." Orders came from Rourke. Malik knelt beside the dying man, anger and regret washing over him in equal measure. Shawn had been a reluctant participant in the scheme who had ultimately chosen to do the right thing, and it had cost him his life. As Shawn's eyes closed for the final time, Malik's phone buzzed with an incoming message. An unknown number had sent a single image: Jordan, bound to a chair in what appeared to be an abandoned building, a piece of paper with today's date propped against his chest. A voice message followed. "You wanted war. It's here." Naomi's scream pierced the cabin when Malik showed her the photo of Jordan. Her legs buckled and she collapsed onto the couch, the phone slipping from her trembling fingers. "How?" "He was right here." Her voice broke as she looked wildly around the cabin, as if Jordan might still be hiding somewhere. Briggs was already reviewing the cabin's surveillance footage. 3 men. Military-style extraction. They waited until you left for supplies, and I stepped out to check the perimeter. His face was tight with guilt. They were professionals, no random kidnapping. Malik's expression had turned to stone, his eyes cold and focused. "They'll contact us with demands. They want something." Naomi looked up, sudden realization dawning. "They want the evidence. They want us to destroy everything we've gathered." "That's not all they want," Malik said quietly. "They want me. This is personal now." As predicted, another message arrived 20 minutes later. An address on the outskirts of town, an abandoned factory complex, and instructions for Malik to come alone, with all evidence digital and physical. "It's a trap," Briggs stated flatly. "Of course it is," Malik agreed, already checking his weapons. "But they've made a critical mistake." "What's that?" Naomi asked, her voice hollow with fear. "They think I care if I survive this." Malik's voice was chillingly calm. "I don't. I only care that Jordan does." While Malik prepared, Briggs made an urgent call to Detective Ruiz, informing her of the situation. Ruiz immediately alerted her federal contacts but warned that official response would be slow, too slow for Jordan. As Malik was gearing up to leave, Jordan made his own move. Though bound to a chair in a dusty office of the abandoned factory, the boy hadn't forgotten his uncle's lessons about situational awareness. He'd been cataloging details since the moment of his abduction. The number of men, 3, their weapons, handguns, 1 rifle, and most importantly, their patterns of movement. One of his captors, younger and clearly nervous, had left Jordan's phone on a table across the room. They'd taken it from his backpack but hadn't bothered to turn it off, confident in their control of the situation. During a shift change, when only the nervous guard remained, Jordan managed to work one hand, free from his loosely tied restraints. "Hey," he called softly to the guard. "I need to use the bathroom." "Hold it, kid," the guard replied, barely looking up from his phone. "Please, I'm going to have an accident." Jordan made his voice sound younger, more frightened. The guard sighed, then approached to untie him. As he leaned down, Jordan reached into the man's jacket pocket and extracted a folded piece of paper he'd noticed earlier. The guard led him to a filthy bathroom, waiting outside, unaware of the theft. Back in the chair, newly restrained but with the paper hidden in his sock, Jordan watched and waited. When all three guards stepped out for a cigarette break, leaving him momentarily alone, he stretched his leg out far enough to reach his fallen backpack with his toe. Dragging it closer, he managed to extract a printed photo that had been stuffed in a side pocket. It was a picture of his uncle. A military photograph showing Malik in combat gear, standing over a fallen man in civilian clothing. Blood pooled around the man's head, and Malik's expression was cold, professional. On the back, someone had scrawled, "Thompson executing Michael Hensley, Afghanistan 2019. Jordan quickly tucked the photo under his thigh as the guards returned. His mind raced, connecting the dots between this image and the strange tension between his uncle and Officer Hensley. There was a history here deeper than he'd realized. Meanwhile, Naomi had refused to stay behind at the cabin. "He's my son," she'd told Malik firmly. "I'm coming with you." "They'll kill you both if they get the chance," Malik warned. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance." Her eyes burned with a mother's fierce determination. They developed a plan. While Malik would appear to surrender himself at the main entrance, Naomi and Briggs would approach from different angles, using the confusion to locate and extract Jordan. Ruiz would position herself nearby with her federal contacts on standby, ready to move in once Jordan was safe. Meanwhile, back at the cabin before leaving, Malik had shown Naomi something that changed everything: an encrypted drive containing classified files he'd smuggled out of Afghanistan. Among them was body camera footage from the day Michael Hensley died, footage proving that Malik had not killed him. "He was running a side operation selling weapons to local warlords," Malik explained. "When I discovered it, he tried to have me killed. The shot that killed him came from his own team, a cleanup operation to silence him when they realized I had evidence." Naomi stared at her brother in shock. "Why didn't you use this to clear your name?" "Because it implicated high-level CIA operatives and military contractors. They buried it, and I accepted the dishonorable discharge to protect you and Jordan. If I'd fought it, they would have come after my family. And now Officer Hensley thinks you killed his brother." "He knows I didn't," Malik corrected. "But he needs someone to blame. And the rest of them, Blake, Rourke, they're using his vendetta to further their own goals." As the siblings finalized their rescue plan, Naomi received a surprising call from Detective Ruiz. "We've got something," Ruiz said without preamble. Shawn Mendez's confession video reached the governor. He's authorized a state police task force to investigate the Brookhaven PD, effective immediately. "That's good news, but it won't help Jordan right now," Naomi replied, her voice tight with worry. "Maybe it will," Ruiz countered. "The authorization includes emergency powers to supersede local jurisdiction. I've briefed them on the kidnapping. They're mobilizing, but they'll need time to get into position." "How much time?" 2 hours minimum. Naomi looked at Malik, who had been listening. He shook his head. "Too long. We move now." As darkness fell, they approached the abandoned factory complex from 3 different directions. Malik, wearing a tactical vest and armed with both his sidearm and sniper rifle, took the most direct route to the main entrance. Naomi circled to the eastern loading docks, guided by Briggs through an earpiece. Briggs himself approached from the south, using the cover of old storage tanks to mask his approach. Inside the factory office, Jordan had made his move. During another guard rotation, he'd managed to reach his phone with his foot, dragging it, close enough to activate the emergency SOS feature. 3 quick presses of the power button. The phone silently sent his location to emergency services and to Naomi's phone as a designated emergency contact. Officer Hensley arrived at the factory, his face haggard from lack of sleep and excessive drinking. He burst into the office where Jordan was held. "Where's your uncle?" he demanded, looming over the boy. "I don't know," Jordan replied, meeting his gaze with surprising steadiness. Don't lie to me, kid. Hensley grabbed Jordan's chair, leaning in close enough that Jordan could smell alcohol on his breath. Your uncle murdered my brother. He left him to die in the dirt like an animal. You're wrong, Jordan said quietly. I saw the proof. Hensley's eyes narrowed. What proof? The real footage. The one that shows who really killed your brother. Hensley's face contorted with rage and confusion. He raised his hand as if to strike Jordan, but another guard intervened. Easy, officer. The kid's just trying to get under your skin. Outside, Malik had reached the main entrance. 2 armed men waited for him, their weapons trained on his approach. That's far enough, Thompson, one called out. Hands where we can. See them. Malik complied, slowly raising his hands. I'm here for the boy. No one else needs to get hurt. Captain Blake wants to talk to you first. Inside a makeshift command center, in what had once been the factory manager's office, Captain Blake and Councilman Rourke were watching the security camera feed showing Malik's surrender. He came alone, Blake observed. Doesn't seem like him. He's a soldier, Rourke replied dismissively. He understands leverage. We have the boy. He has no choice. What about the evidence? Once we have Thompson, we'll force him to hand over everything. Then we clean this up. Permanently. Rourke's cold eyes fixed on the screen. The sniper, the woman, the boy, all tragic victims of a gas leak explosion. Hensley too, if he keeps unraveling. What they didn't see was Naomi, who had managed to enter through an unguarded service entrance Briggs had identified. Moving silently through the shadows, she followed the sound of voices until she located the room where Jordan was being held. From her hiding place, she could see her son, alive but bound to a chair, with Hensley pacing agitatedly nearby and 2 other armed men standing guard. Her heart pounded as she signaled her position to Briggs and Malik through her earpiece. I'm in position, she whispered. Jordan's alive. Hensley's with him plus 2 guards. Wait for my signal, Malik's voice came back, barely audible. Briggs, what's your status? Security room located, Briggs replied. Ready to cut power on your mark. Outside, Malik allowed himself to be led into the building, mentally mapping the layout against the blueprints he'd studied. He was brought face to face with Blake and Rourke in the command center. Thompson, Blake acknowledged coldly. I'd say it's good to see you again, but we both know that's not true. Where's my nephew? Malik demanded. Safe, for now, Rourke interjected. Whether he stays that way depends entirely on you. Malik assessed the room. 2 exits, 3 armed guards plus Blake, who was almost certainly carrying. Rourke appeared unarmed but dangerous in a different way. His eyes held the calculating coldness of someone who saw people as disposable pieces on a chessboard. I want proof he's alive right now, Malik insisted. Or this conversation is over. Blake nodded to one of the guards who spoke into a radio. Moments later, a live feed appeared on one of the monitors, showing Jordan still bound in the chair, Hensley visible at the edge of the frame. Malik allowed himself a small breath of relief, then turned to Rourke. Let's cut to it. What do you want? Everything, Rourke replied simply. The evidence you've gathered, the files you've stolen, the witnesses you've persuaded to talk, all of it, permanently destroyed. And in return, the boy goes home with his mother. You. Rourke gave a thin smile. Well, that's a different conversation. Malik held Rourke's gaze. I'll need to make a call. Authorize my associate to turn over the files. No calls, Blake cut in. We're not stupid. Then you don't get what you want, Malik countered. The files are secured with encryption that will trigger if I don't check in hourly. Everything goes public automatically. Blake looked to Rourke, who nodded reluctantly. One call, on speaker. Malik dialed Briggs. It's me, Plan B. Understood, Briggs replied calmly. Seconds later, the entire factory plunged into darkness as Briggs cut the main power. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow through the corridors as chaos erupted. In the confusion, Naomi made her move, slipping into the room where Jordan was held. Using a knife Malik had given her, she cut her son's restraints while the guards were distracted by the power outage. "Mom," Jordan whispered, throwing his arms around her. "Quiet, baby. We're getting out of here." She guided him toward the door, but their path was blocked by Hensley, his gun drawn. "Not so fast," he growled, his silhouette menacing in the red. "Emergency lighting." "Nobody's going anywhere. Step away from my son." Naomi's voice was surprisingly steady as she stared down the barrel of Hensley's gun. The red emergency lights cast grotesque shadows across his face, making him look more monster than man. "You don't give the orders here," Hensley snarled. His hand trembled slightly. Whether from rage or the alcohol on his breath, Naomi couldn't tell. Jordan stepped forward, placing himself partially between his mother and the officer. "There's something you need to know about your brother." "Jordan, no." Naomi tried to pull him back. "I saw the real video," Jordan continued, his young voice clear and insistent. "Uncle Malik didn't kill him. His own team did." Hensley's eyes widened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face before hardening again. "Lying won't save you." "It's in my backpack." Jordan pointed to where his bag lay on the floor. "The picture and the paper with the codes to access the full video. Your brother was selling weapons. They killed him to cover it up." Hensley's attention shifted momentarily to the backpack, just long enough for Naomi to act. She lunged forward, driving her shoulder into his midsection with all her strength. The gun discharged, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling as they both crashed to the floor. "Run, Jordan!" Naomi screamed, fighting to keep Hensley's gun hand pinned. Jordan darted for the door but stopped when he saw the two guards returning, drawn by the gunshot. He was trapped. At that exact moment, the emergency lights went out too. Briggs had cut the backup power. In the pitch darkness, a single shot rang out, followed by a heavy thud. When dim light from a tactical flashlight cut through the darkness, seconds later one guard lay motionless on the floor. Malik stood in the doorway, his silenced pistol still smoking. "Jordan, to me. Now." Malik's voice was a command, not a request. Jordan ran to his uncle while Naomi continued struggling with Hensley. The remaining guard reached for his weapon, but Malik was faster, placing a perfectly aimed shot through the man's shoulder. The guard collapsed, howling in pain. Malik moved to help Naomi, but she had already gained the upper hand, slamming Hensley's wrist against the concrete floor until his gun clattered away. She scrambled to retrieve it, backing away with the weapon, now trained on Hensley. "You won't shoot me," Hensley taunted, slowly getting to his feet despite the blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "You don't have it in you." "You're right," Naomi replied, her aim never wavering. "But I don't need to shoot you. I just need to keep you here until the state police arrive." Hensley's expression changed, the reality of his situation sinking in. "State police?" "Governor's orders," Malik confirmed, his voice cold. Sean's confession video went viral. "It's over, Hensley." Elsewhere in the building, Rourke and Blake were in panicked motion, gathering documents and hard drives from the makeshift command center. "We need to go, now," Blake urged, shoving files into a duffel bag. "Thompson's obviously not alone. This could be a raid." "What about the boy?" "The evidence?" Rourke demanded, his usual composure cracking. "Forget them. We need to reach my boat. From there, we can make it to international waters, figure out our next move." They rushed down a darkened corridor toward a rear exit, guided only by Blake's flashlight. As they reached a junction, the beam illuminated a figure blocking their path, Detective Angela Ruiz, her badge glinting in the light, her service weapon aimed steadily at them. "Police! Drop the bags! Hands where I can see them!" Blake reached for his gun, but Ruiz was prepared, firing a warning shot that echoed through the corridor. "That was your one warning, Captain," she said evenly. "The next one finds center mass." Blake froze, slowly raising his hands. Rourke, seeing his opportunity, suddenly shoved Blake toward Ruiz and bolted down a side passage. Blake stumbled into Ruiz, knocking her off balance. By the time she recovered, Rourke had disappeared into the darkness. "Federal agents are securing all exits," Ruiz informed Blake as she cuffed him. "You're done." Meanwhile, Malik had left Naomi to guard Hensley while he and Jordan made their way through the factory toward the central offices. Jordan led the way, remembering the path from when he'd been brought in. Through there, Jordan pointed to a set of double doors. That's where they were talking about the setup. They didn't know I could hear them. Malik peered through a small window in the door. Inside, he could see Rourke frantically ransacking cabinets in what had once been the factory manager's office. Stay back, Malik instructed Jordan, positioning the boy behind a heavy filing cabinet. No matter what happens, don't move until I come get you. Malik entered silently, his footsteps masked by the sounds of Rourke's desperate search. The councilman was muttering to himself, shoving documents into a briefcase. When he turned and saw Malik, he froze momentarily before forcing a politician's smile. "Thompson, I see you've managed to complicate things." He casually reached toward his jacket. "I wouldn't," Malik warned, his weapon trained on Rourke's chest. "Your security is down. Blake is in custody. It's finished." "Nothing's ever truly finished," Rourke replied smoothly. "Men like us understand that. We're soldiers in different armies, that's all. There's always a way out, a deal to be made. Not this time." Rourke's facade slipped, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "What do you want, Thompson? Money? Reinstatement? Your record cleared? I can make all that happen with one phone call." "I want justice for my sister, for every family your corrupt operation has victimized." A new voice joined the conversation, Briggs, entering through a side door. "And we want the truth about Michael Hensley made public." Rourke's eyes darted between them, assessing odds, looking for leverage. The CIA would never allow that information to surface. Too many important people involved. "Maybe not officially," Briggs replied, holding up a small device. "But I've been broadcasting this entire conversation to multiple secure servers, including your admission about Michael Hensley and the CIA connection." For the first time, genuine fear flashed across Rourke's face. He lunged for a desk drawer, pulling out a concealed handgun. Malik didn't hesitate. His training took over. A single shot echoed through the office, catching Rourke in the shoulder and spinning him against the wall. The councilman collapsed, clutching his bleeding wound, his weapon skittering across the floor. "You should have taken the deal," Malik said coldly, kicking the gun away. The factory was quickly filling with law enforcement, state police tactical units, FBI agents, even local officers who hadn't been part of the corruption. Briggs had contacted Ruiz the moment the power went out, and she had called in every resource available. As dawn broke over the abandoned factory, Naomi stood with Jordan wrapped in a shock blanket, watching as Blake, Rourke, and Hensley were led out in handcuffs. News vans were already gathering outside the perimeter, hungry for the story of corruption and justice that was unfolding. Detective Ruiz approached them, exhaustion evident in her face but satisfaction in her eyes. "You're safe now, all of you." She looked to Malik, who stood slightly apart, his expression unreadable. "That includes you, Thompson. The U.S. attorney wants to talk about your discharge. It seems new evidence has surfaced." Malik nodded once, acknowledging but not celebrating. Too many had paid too high a price for this moment to feel like victory. A state police officer approached, holding an official-looking envelope. "Mr. Thompson, this just came through from the Pentagon. They said it was urgent." Malik accepted the envelope, breaking the seal to find formal military letterhead. As he read, his stoic expression faltered slightly, just enough for Naomi to notice. "What is it?" she asked, moving to his side. "Full exoneration," Malik replied quietly. "My dishonorable discharge has been overturned. Retroactive full military pension and benefits restored." He folded the letter carefully. "Someone high up is very anxious to make this go away quietly." Jordan looked up at his uncle, his young face serious beyond his years. "Does this mean you're staying?" Malik ruffled the boy's hair, the gesture awkward but affectionate. "For a while, at least." As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the factory grounds, Malik stared at the horizon, his expression haunted despite the victory. The battle was won, but the war that had shaped him, both abroad and at home, had left scars that would never fully heal. 3 months after the events, at the abandoned factory, Brookhaven was a changed town. The corruption scandal had resulted in the resignation of Mayor Landon, the appointment of an interim city council, and a complete restructuring of the police department under state supervision. The community center on Elm Street was packed to capacity for what the local newspaper had dubbed the Justice Rally. Folding chairs filled the main hall with people standing along the walls and spilling out into the corridor. At the podium, flanked by representatives from the NAACP, the Urban League, and several civil rights attorneys, stood Naomi Williams. Gone was the exhausted, frightened waitress from months ago. In her place stood a woman transformed, not by fame or vindication, but by purpose. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, her posture straight and confident as she addressed the crowd. "What happened to my family wasn't unique," she began, her voice steady. "What was unique was that we fought back, and we had help. Many in our community have suffered silently for years, watching their rights violated, their dignity stripped away, their complaints ignored." The audience murmured in agreement, several calling out, "That's right," and "Tell it." Today isn't about celebration. It's about commitment, Naomi continued. Commitment to ensure that what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. Commitment to hold those in power accountable. Commitment to teaching our children that justice isn't just a word. It's something worth fighting for. In the front row, Jordan sat tall, pride evident in his young face as he watched his mother. Beside him sat Dolores Henry, the elderly neighbor whose doorbell camera footage had proven pivotal in the case. She reached over occasionally to pat Jordan's hand, her own eyes glistening with tears of vindication. At the back of the hall, partially, hidden in shadow, stood Malik. Though invited to speak, he had declined, preferring to watch his sister shine. Their relationship had healed over the past months, not completely but substantially. Some wounds needed more time. After the rally, a reception was held in the community center's small courtyard. Detective Angela Ruiz, now Chief Ruiz of the restructured Brookhaven Police Department, approached Naomi with a smile. "That was quite a speech," Ruiz said, shaking Naomi's hand. "The Oversight Committee was impressed. They're seriously considering your application for the Civilian Review Board." "I'm just getting started," Naomi replied with quiet determination. "How's the department transition going?" "Challenging. Rebuilding trust takes time. But we're making progress." Ruiz lowered her voice. "I've recommended body cameras that can't be switched off and independent review of all vehicle searches and seizures. The mayor pro tem signed off this morning." Nearby, Jordan was surrounded by friends from school, recounting a carefully edited version of his ordeal. His status had shifted from kid whose mom got in trouble with the police to something approaching local hero, though Naomi was careful to monitor the attention, concerned about its impact on him. One significant change was evident in Jordan's demeanor, a new confidence, a watchfulness that hadn't been there before. Malik's lessons in situational awareness had taken root, for better or worse. The boy would never again view authority with blind trust, but neither had he become cynical. Instead, he'd developed a clear-eyed perspective that would serve him well in the years ahead. As afternoon faded into evening, the attendees gradually dispersed. Naomi, Jordan, and Malik walked together toward Naomi's new car, a modest sedan purchased with part of the settlement from her civil suit against the Yaqui City. "I got a letter today," Jordan announced as they drove, "from the Baldwin Foundation. They want to give me a full scholarship when I'm ready for college." "That's wonderful, baby," Naomi exclaimed, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "They said my essay about what happened was the best they received," Jordan continued proudly. "They're even publishing it in their newsletter." Malik turned slightly in the passenger seat. "What did you write about?" "About how sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you don't, and the people you hardly know step up instead. About how justice doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen." Naomi's eyes met Malik's briefly, a silent acknowledgement, passing between them. Jordan had grown up too fast these past months, but perhaps he'd grown well. They drove to the courthouse, where Hensley's trial had concluded that morning. Though they hadn't attended the proceedings, Naomi had given her testimony days earlier. They wanted to witness this final chapter. As they pulled into the parking lot, Hensley was being led out in handcuffs, headed for a prison transport van. His face was gaunt, his former arrogance replaced by a hollow stare. When he spotted Malik watching from the car, he paused momentarily, their eyes meeting across the distance. There was no triumph in Malik's gaze, no gloating or satisfaction, only a quiet acknowledgement that justice, however imperfect, had finally been served. Hensley lowered his eyes first, allowing the officers to guide him into the van. 20 years, Naomi said quietly as the van pulled away. For Sean's murder, for kidnapping, for corruption. Blake got 15. Rourke's trial starts next month. Will it be enough? Jordan asked from the back seat. It's a start, Malik replied. Systems don't change overnight. The following week brought a surprising development. A letter arrived at Naomi's new apartment, bearing the presidential seal. Inside was a personal note thanking her for her courage in standing up to corruption and commending her commitment to community improvement. A separate letter addressed to Jordan praised his bravery and encouraged his interest in journalism. Notably absent was any mention of Malik's role in the events. When Naomi pointed this out, Malik simply shrugged. Better that way. Some things belong in the shadows. That afternoon, Malik drove to the small military cemetery 40 miles from Brookhaven. He walked among the headstones until he found the one he sought. Marcus Reynolds, a fellow Green Beret who had died in the same operation that had led to Malik's disgrace. Reynolds had been the only one who'd stood by him, who'd believed his version of events about Michael Hensley. That loyalty had cost Reynolds his career, and eventually, his life. Malik knelt beside the grave, placing his newly reinstated military insignia and dog tags on the headstone. We finally did something right, brother, he said softly. Not perfect, but right. As he walked back to his car, his phone rang. A number he didn't recognize, but a call he'd been half expecting. The voice on the other end was professional, clipped, clearly government, but deliberately vague. Mr. Thompson, we'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Something off the books, but important. Your country needs people with your particular skill set and moral compass. I'm listening, Malik replied, his expression giving nothing away. When he returned to Naomi's apartment that evening, he found her on the balcony watching Jordan ride his new bicycle around the complex. The boy waved enthusiastically each time he passed below, his face carefree in a way it hadn't been for months. You're leaving again, aren't you? Naomi asked without turning around. She'd always been perceptive. I have to. Malik stood beside her, watching Jordan make another loop. Some fights aren't over. Will you at least say goodbye to him this time? Yes. Malik's voice softened. And I'll come back. Not in 5 years. Much sooner. Naomi studied her brother's face. You found purpose again, something like that. He didn't elaborate and she didn't press. Some secrets were safer kept. The next morning, Malik was gone, his few possessions packed, his rental car no longer in the parking lot. Jordan found a small package on his bed, a compass with a note. Always know where you're going. Always remember where you've been. Life gradually settled into a new normal for Naomi and Jordan. She opened a small cafe called Second Chances near the community center, hiring local youth and formerly incarcerated individuals looking for a fresh start. Jordan threw himself into school and his new passion for journalism, his article about the corruption scandal winning a statewide contest for young writers. Occasionally, Naomi would catch glimpses of a familiar figure watching from a distance, at Jordan's school play, at the cafe's grand opening, at the community center's rebuilding. Ceremony, Malik never approached, never made his presence known beyond that brief visual confirmation that he was still connected, still watching over them. One evening, as Jordan rode his bike past the newly rebuilt community center, Naomi noticed a tall figure standing in the shadows across the street. For a moment, their eyes met, and Malik offered a small nod before vanishing around the corner. Peace comes in unexpected ways, Dolores Henry had told Naomi weeks earlier. Sometimes through justice, sometimes through acceptance, sometimes just through knowing you're not alone in the fight. As the streetlights flickered on and Jordan made his way back toward her, Naomi felt that peace settling over her. Fragile, perhaps. Hard-won, certainly. But real, nonetheless. The system hadn't been completely fixed, but it had been shaken. Awareness had been raised. And in their own small corner of the world, justice had prevailed. For now, that was enough. What price are we willing to pay for justice in a system built to resist change? Malik's war continues in the shadows, but Naomi and Jordan's victory reminds us that even the most entrenched corruption can be challenged when we refuse to stay silent. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more tales of courage against impossible odds.